call to order this joint workshop with the Siloam Springs Board of Directors and the Planning and Zoning Commission. At this time, I would like to ask that everyone silence any electronic device that you might have, and I'll thank you for that. And without further ado, we will turn this floor over to Don Ward.
I want to get that close, but not too close. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Members of the board, planning commissioners, and about half of our Comp Plan Advisory Committee is also here participating, and I'm excited to, as the project manager for this comprehensive plan, bring to you what we are calling our final draft, the product that is ready for the show, ready for final reviews by elected and appointed officials and the community so that it can be advanced for adoption in the coming weeks. So first, I do want to, at the end of the presentation has a whole section on acknowledgments, but I kind of want to do that now. We had a lot of support through this planning process, which has been approximately 18 months, although we did have a bit of a hiatus at the very beginning due to COVID. So really almost about 24 months that we've been working on the development of a new comprehensive plan for the city of Siloam Springs. We have had a very active and engaged comprehensive plan advisory committee appointed by the board, 11 individuals representing the community, helping us understand and kind of synthesize information that we received through public engagement and make sure that the tone of the plan and the content of the plan was representative of what the community was telling us through every step of the process. So that's been incredibly important. Your staff team has been very helpful. They've always made sure that we have arrangements made. They've helped us to get the word out to the community through the various city communication channels. So the team that has been here at City Hall helping us to engage the community and make sure that the plan had that level of support and information, because they're wildly more informed about history and nuances within the community that helped us just better understand where we're going with things. So up front, I just want to say thank you to those groups particularly, and for the Planning Commission and the board for sort of tracking through the process and watching over us and asking us questions along the way to make sure that we were getting it right. So all of you had access to and hopefully picked up copies of this June 1st draft hard copy plan. You should have that available to you. And the piece that I put in front of you as a handout for this evening is this is a reduced copy of the panels and the exhibit that we posted at the last community meeting on May 19th. I know that not everybody was able to be there, so I just wanted to give you an idea of what that looked like. We were fortunate because the library installed a cork strip at the top of the community room, kind of all around the room. And so there's one wall that's like 7 feet tall from the cork strip down to the floor and 32 feet wide. So we created a series of panels that covered that wall. So the idea was to tell the story of the plan and ensure that people, again, had the opportunity to put their comments on that exhibit and give us feedback before we finalized the draft. So that was the May 19th activity. And I'll get into a few more of the public engagement pieces as we walk our way through this. I know that you all also got the link to this GIS story map, and that's kind of how that is how we're going to tell the story of the plan and use this tool. This is an interactive web page that was created to do just that, to tell the story of the plan. And it's set up in various parts. So you've got a sort of a menu bar at the top, and you can pull down and go directly to each of these different topic areas, or you can just scroll through and gradually get there. So I mentioned that we engaged in about an 18-month process to develop this comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is something that is an overarching policy guide for you as city leaders to help you ensure that the decisions you make are representative of the community's vision. So part of the early efforts in gathering feedback from the community part of those efforts were really focused on understanding what that vision was and how the community wanted to see Siloam Springs grow and develop over the next 10 to 20 years. So that's what this first part really explains, is kind of what's the purpose of having a comprehensive plan. It also, from a legal purpose or legal standpoint, you need a comprehensive plan in order to establish zoning, so check that box. You also need the components of a comprehensive plan in order to facilitate things like development applications. So zoning changes, you utilize the comprehensive plan in some of that decision making. Also, with regard to things like subdivisions and the determination of how much right-of-way is necessary to provide for a continuous street network. The master street plan, which is housed within the comprehensive plan, is an element that is used to make those decisions as well, at both an administrative level as well as discretionary for those actions that come before one or both of these boards. So the development of the plan followed basically 6 steps, and that's outlined here. We started with a clear understanding of the demographics and what is existing on the ground today. We call that our community snapshot, or a demographic profile. We also went through very early on a process of issue identification, and so that took the form of the community survey, the online survey that was conducted, as well as the first in-person meeting and our first meetings with both of these boards, where we really talked about strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities within the community moving forward. After issue identification, we sort of reached out broader. We gathered more feedback from the community to understand what their goals are and match that up with our understanding of the needs. So, and with those pieces of information, we developed a vision and guiding principles to provide sort of the spine of the plan, so to speak. Once that's done, we worked our way through various plan recommendations, and so that's all of the different content chapters of the plan: land use, transportation and mobility, resiliency, community character, all of those elements that that we needed to flesh out and discuss a little bit more in depth in order to create recommendations that were responsive to the community's vision and the goals of the plan. And once that action plan, which we call our implementation strategy, was developed, we also created a way to measure progress. So there's a series of measurements that can be utilized to monitor the plan moving forward and determine how well and how quickly the community is able to address and kind of gain traction on the 118 recommendations in the plan. So the plan itself is divided into 5 parts, the first being our foundation, and that really consists of sort of historical information, other plans that are both local and regional that are that need to be recognized and some incorporated into this planning process, and also the community snapshot that I mentioned. The second part of the plan is called our vision, and this is where we really get into a broader discussion about the vision statement and the guiding principles and goals that sort of feed up into that vision statement. And I will say, as you work through this particular tool, each of these boxes is a link that will take you to the content of the plan, so you can actually see what all that looks like relative to the piece of the plan that you're looking at. So once you get to the Our Plan piece, there are multiple chapters, and so in each of these 8 chapters, you can link to the particular content as well. It's the exact same draft version that you have in hard copy. The fourth part of the plan document is our strategy. That's the implementation or action plan for getting done the things that the community believes will need to be accomplished in order for the city to achieve its vision. And then, of course, it also contains the performance measures. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we scroll down to the bottom of this story map. So there's a section in the story map that just provides context for where Siloam Springs is, how it fits into the region, how the how the planning area and the city limits are reflected. Each of the maps that's contained within this story map I should probably get that a little bigger too. Each of the maps that's contained here, also you can blow up a little bit and actually go down into a real strong level of detail. They're GIS maps and they kind of go down to the parcel level. So kind of interesting to be able to just work your way around the community like that. A very important component to the development of any comprehensive plan, and one thing that we focused on from the very beginning was ensuring that we had a very robust public engagement program that went along with this planning project. And we, in fact, conducted a lot of different activities in order to get feedback from the community, ask the right questions, understand what the needs and desires are, and then ask the community to check our work and tell us if we were hitting the right notes with regard to what we were recommending. So in this particular link takes you to the project website, where we have all of the various activities that have been conducted related to public engagement. And each one of these cards or pieces will actually link to more information about that particular activity or event, and then even take you to the presentation or recordings or the notes from the meeting. So you get a summary of each of those activities as you kind of click your way through this information. And get back to where I was here. At a high level, we engaged in in-person community open house meetings, more than 150 people. We conducted, at the early stages of the project, more than 26 local stakeholder interviews, and that was reaching out to Chamber of Commerce, people from different business sectors, different community organizations, people who work with the code and work with the, go through the planning process, citizens, and anybody who wanted to talk to us. We tried to get time to meet with them and to get their feedback and understanding of what their goals were. We created a monthly newsletter update that was that has been an email update every month. And at this point in time, we have more than 425 subscribers on that update. The most recent one went out Monday for June. We conducted an online survey. It was open for about 6 weeks at the early stages of the project, and we got just shy of 700 responses to the online survey. We also, throughout the process, had a couple of different self-guided exhibits. So we did 3 community meetings, but we also needed to go back and ask for more information with regard to future land use. So we posted exhibits, and they were both online as well as in person, where people could provide feedback on the land use proposals that were being presented. Later, we did the same with what we called big idea boards, and those were meant to ensure that we were matching up goals with the guiding principles in a way that made sense to people. So those were self-guided activities, both online and posted in both the City Hall for for the big idea boards, and the library and the Community Development Department for the other future land use. We conducted 7 meetings with our Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, and they were great. Everybody came out. They helped us, as I said, sort of distill the information and make sure that we were processing things properly. We've had a couple of joint workshops, and we also, and our Comp Plan Advisory Committee members were very good sports. They helped us to develop promotional videos for each of the community meetings, or for 2 of the community meetings and the Big Idea Boards activity, so that we had something snappy to put out through the social media channels and gain some interest and get people to participate in those activities. So our advisory committee folks were our spokesmodels and did a great job. The next section of the story map is really just a walkthrough, a timeline of the various activities from the very beginning, when we conducted our online kickoff meetings, which happened to be the week of a really bad ice storm last winter, all the way through to our most recent May 19th public meeting. So we just wanted to capture a good understanding of the timeline and how various pieces were being presented. So we included the topics that were discussed at each of the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee meetings and those types of things in that timeline. Down to today for the joint workshop. I won't scroll through all of these. There are 16 photos in this little slideshow here, and they're just photos that highlight the community engagement activities throughout the course of the plan. And we put the vision statement next because it's very much tied to the community engagement that we had, and it represents what the community wants to see in the future. So I think we've kind of gone through this one before, but the vision statement is that Siloam Springs is a modern, mid-sized city with a small town feel. We are a welcoming, safe, and vibrant community celebrating our rich history and a connection to the natural environment. With a pride of place, we enjoy diverse and inclusive neighborhoods, unique destinations, and thriving businesses supporting our residents and the region. Once that was done, we also worked to develop these guiding principles. Again, they're very foundational to the plan because all of the recommendations and goals point back to one or more of these guiding principles. And based upon the initial surveys and input from the first community meeting, these were the 8 statements that people most recognized, most associated with, and felt were positive with regard to reflecting the community's values. So the next section really goes through each of those 8 guiding principles and identifies the goals that are associated with them. So this is what we went back through the big idea boards and sort of checked with the community to make sure that these goals were the ones that that reflected that guiding principle and that they made sense. So the feedback that we got, we were able to make some adjustments and kind of refine those connections. There are a total of 28 goals that are associated with the 8 guiding principles. I won't read all of those because you guys have those in front of you, but they scroll through nicely so you can just sort of take your time looking through them if you choose. 2 more. All right. Then this section, the land use component of the comprehensive plan is a really important element. Sometimes that's the entirety of a plan that a community wants, is that they need a future land use map in order to, just make decisions about zoning changes and other types of land use. It is, in our opinion, of course, it's a hugely important part, but not the only part of the plan. But it is a very functional component, and it's used very regularly. So what we were able to do here in the story map was to demonstrate on the left-hand side of this slider existing land use, and there actually is a key that pops up and shows you the categories for existing as well as future land use, because on the right side of the slider is what's being proposed in the plan as the new future land use map. So you can see that things do change. We anticipate that vacant properties will be developed in some way, shape, or form, and so this is what that reflects. Oftentimes reflecting what's existing on the ground, but not necessarily. So it's intended to be a future vision, and this map again kind of blows up. If you choose to kind of zoom into it, you can do so down to a parcel level and take a look at those changes. The future land use map is an important tool for your staff when they are considering zoning changes, how they present, what type of recommendation they can make to the Planning Commission that ultimately comes to the board with regard to changes in zoning. And it also helps to give people an understanding of what might evolve in the future with regard to land around them. It can also be a very useful tool for developers and folks coming into the community who are just sort of wanting to explore what may be different in the future and where opportunities may lie. All right. I mentioned the transportation and mobility, having the the master street plan, which is sort of a companion to the future land use map. Land use and transportation go hand in hand, and it's important that your transportation networks support the kind of development that is being proposed in the future land use map. In this instance, the city not long ago adopted an updated master street plan, so in 2020, in fact. And so we really didn't make modifications to that, but we did check to make sure that it was that it correlated appropriately with the recommended land uses. In addition to the master street plan in the transportation and mobility chapter of the plan, we also incorporated a bike and pedestrian network map. Much of this is taken from the regional bike ped plan, so that we were reflecting adopted plans that are already in place. This particular map also includes some recommendations that are mentioned in the plan, and that is to develop gateways as well as greenways to provide some sort of a buffer and a sense of arrival for people coming into the city of Siloam Springs, to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where people are driving from one community to the next and don't really see where the dividing line is. We know that happens in other places. This map also does demonstrate a couple of several crossings that were identified through public engagement, particularly the second community meeting. We talked a lot about transportation, even though the focus of that meeting was land use. There was a lot of discussion about safe crossings, particularly on 412, so that people can get across this pretty massive transportation facility safely. So those were identified, and that's the triangles look like, and then the circles and stars are gateways, either primary or secondary, and then the green areas here indicate a greenway. So a special treatment for the street section so that it has some character and also provides that buffer where it adjoins other communities or provides an entrance. The implementation strategy is all about what to do with the plan information that's been provided. So the matrix that is included at the very front of that chapter walks you through what section of the plan the recommendations are tied to, a particular goal that is represented within that section, and then the particular guiding principles and the strategies, which are the action steps to be taken. And the action steps to be taken are all fleshed out to the extent that we can provide some kind of recommended timeline, is early, mid, or late within the planning horizon that those activities should take place. The estimated cost range is really something that you would see on Yelp with the different dollar signs as to how expensive the restaurant might be. So it's more of a temperature as opposed to a specific dollar amount. Most of these recommendations, well, I say that, the recommendations all come in a variety of different types of actions. So some may be code amendments, so adjusting regulatory controls. That could be something that staff just administers and brings to you without it costing more than what it costs to operate day to day. It may be something that requires an additional study or plan. It could also be a capital project or program. So all of those things, it's all somewhat relative, but all of those things are also things that you as decision makers have some control over and can program into your various decision making, and whether that is how you integrate the comprehensive plan into your capital improvement planning, or how it gets reflected in your annual strategic plan. Those are things that you'll have the ability to do, and hopefully this implementation matrix makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to actually link to this one because the implementation matrix is many, many pages long, but this is how the tool looks and what you're able to kind of pull from it. And again, this is the last section within the implementation strategy chapter is a series of performance measures. So understanding that your goals are what they are, you're trying to accomplish certain things in response to the community's vision. We've identified for each of the guiding principles different sets of measurements that can be used to monitor progress. And I think that's actually here. Yep. There you go. So This will take a little bit of work to develop maybe a spreadsheet or some other tool to kind of keep track of this, but it could become a reporting tool for you, so you can get feedback from the staff on a regular basis, whether that's annually or whatever the timeline is deemed to be appropriate. They can use these measures and present to you a good understanding of what's been accomplished and what's still left to do within the recommendations of the plan. And then I think I'm back to acknowledgments. Oh, sorry, scooted too far ahead. There we go. And again, just back to acknowledgments and making sure that we recognize the folks that put in some long hours and a lot of work to develop this plan and get it in front of you for consideration. I haven't delved into any of the statistics or other numbers with regard to the outcome of the plan, but I wanted to make sure to give you this overview so that you sort of understand the process, what's in this tool, and how you can use it moving forward. But I'm more than happy to take any questions that you might have, and the floor is back to you.
Thank you, Dawn. So, directors, do you have any questions, comments at this time for Dawn or for our? No? Philip, do you have any comments?
Madam Mayor and Board, I would just say that I wanted to congratulate staff and Fries and Nichols on doing this job. I've done this a couple of times in my previous lives, and it's a daunting task. And I think the consultant and staff did a really good job of trying to get community input from all the different spectrums, from public meetings, from online surveys, and taking that into account and creating this document. And from everything that I can see and read, I think it's provides a very clear vision, and I think it's a good snapshot of the community where we are today, and based on that public input, where we expect to go into the future. I would ask one favor, if you would. I was just going through the strategies in the implementation matrix.
Yep.
And the struggle is trying to go back to find that commentary for that particular one. So maybe if you could put the page number for land use or those headings, just so I could, or somebody else besides me, could flip to it a little easier.
Okay.
But I again, it's a big project for us, and this is a document that's going to last us for 10 years or so to look into the future, and it's a guiding document, and I think I think Fries Nichols did a really good job. Thank you
So much. We do recommend that this document is looked at and revised on periodically. You probably need to take a 1-year look at it and make any housekeeping adjustments that are relevant at that point in time based upon decisions made during that year, and probably at a 5-year interval do a little bit of an update, because this is, as Philip said, a snapshot in time, and you kind of have to move along with it. It will evolve with the community if it is maintained, and it won't age as a plan might if it sits on a shelf and isn't actively utilized. So, and the other thing I didn't mention as I was wrapping up is that there are 2 steps left in the process to get through to adoption, and the first is to take this plan to the Planning Commission so that they may make a formal recommendation to the Board of Directors concerning adoption of the plan, and then it'll come back to the board for a formal action. We're looking at July 12th for the Planning Commission and July 19th to be back to the board as our target dates.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Carol.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank all of those that served.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
Yes,
I
Brad.
feel like we should say something. What I'm most excited about is, things I've been mentioning in my closing comment at board meetings have shown up in here, and I had no idea. So, I don't know if I'm on target or you guys are on target, but it's just a trend. And what I like about the information in here is that some of this we've been active on, and some of this we haven't been very proactive with. And I feel like the direction the Siloam's going right now, with the board that we have and any board in the future, it answers some of the questions we've struggled with. Or it helps us. It didn't answer them, but it gives us some guideline of some of the stuff we struggled with the growth and things like that. And my biggest struggle, and just specifically for Ward 2 is, and I brought up the last board meeting, the missing middle housing, pervious pavers. I mean, we go low impact development. We just go through here our quality of life. And I like to see it echoed in a comprehensive plan. And it makes me feel good as a future real citizen of Siloam going into next year that there's a plan in place and I can rest and take it easy. So I appreciate the work, and you had a great board, and I'm glad a couple of the board members showed up here that worked on that, and you guys did a fantastic job. Thanks.
Thank you, Brad.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Marla.
John, I just want to thank you for, it was a learning experience and a good opportunity, and you were very aware of what we wanted, even when we didn't want it. You kind of guided us and helped us get to the end, but you were very open to our input, and that meant a lot to me, and so I appreciate that.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
since Director Burns wants us to say something, or feels like we need to say something, I think that's what I heard you say. I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you as well for your work on this. And I remember being at one of the meetings and sitting at a table with some younger citizens who were just really excited about the opportunity to be involved in some of the planning for the future of our city. And I think to have that plan in place, and yes, there may be times we need to revise it accordingly, but to have it in place, I think will be very helpful for the future of our town and our citizens. So thank you all again for your work on this.
Thank you, Mindy. Anyone else?
Mayor.
Yes, Reed.
Thank you.
Short and sweet.
Anyone else? If not, then I will say a final thank you to you, Don. We really appreciate what you have done and your leadership. We do appreciate all those that served on the committee. And would any of you all like to make a comment before we adjourn this workshop? No one standing up, so.
They've had a lot to stay over the last 18 months.
That's good, and it obviously, it shows the work that has gone into this, and this, what you have given to us in the presentation. I would also like to thank our citizens for their input, that they were willing to come out and let you all know what they thought and what they would like to see for their city. So we thank you to all of those that participated. And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn this workshop. Thank you all.